Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 823. Now, in today's episode, we're talking about really mental overconsumption of information that may be, and most probably will be, getting you in more trouble than you think. You see, most people think they need more things. Like, we can even just play it out in our experience of like consuming physical items. We want this, we want that, we need a bigger house, we need a better car. We're really designed to try to learn and acquire more. That's why we go to school, that's why you're here, you want to learn something. For a lot of us, we want to buy things. I try to be pretty frugal and a bit minimalistic at times. But when it comes to the psychology of the mind, that is something that we've got to really think about. Most people think they just need more information. If I just read that book, if I just listen, here we go. Even with my work, I've got these 823 episodes, and you might be thinking, I've got to listen to another episode. I've got to listen to another one, or I've got to listen to another track, and all those kind of things. Or maybe go to another seminar, go to another training, see another practitioner, see another therapist. We get into this mindset that we need more information. But in reality, the chances are you don't need more information, you need more application, right? You need to apply what you have. Because if you start to apply what you've presently got and put it into action, you will then start to learn, and then you'll start to grow. But it's that paralysis of analysis, of information, that you have to acquire more information to get to where you want to be, to me is illusionary. And it's easy also because we're being sold things all the time. Like in business, for me, people reach out about their marketing service. I need to do this, go onto that mastermind, do this business program. And in reality, you don't. You may need just to choose one person or one avenue and go all in on that. And I'm not even saying about me and like my program or anything like that. You got to find someone who resonates with you to then go, I'm just going to take this information, what I have presently, and then start to apply it. Not just read it, think about it, dream about it. Because I like to see it as a scale. You have on the one scale your thoughts, on the other scale is your actions. Now, if you could imagine on this axis or axis or whatever your axi, whatever one we call them, you know what I mean, like one up, one all across, 0 to 10, 0 to 10, right? Just imagine that as like a little graph right there. On the one going all the way up, let's just say that's our thinking, that's our consumption of information. You may measure yourself out of 10 as to where you are, right? You might go, yeah, Joseph, I'm all in when it comes to consumption of information. I put time out every single day to learn, or I might do 1 hour every single week to be able to work on my development, which is good and great. But then on the other axis or axi, 0 to 10, we've got to then ask ourselves, well, where am I here? Because if you're having a 10 out of 10 of information and thinking and imagining and absorbing, but you only have like a 1 and 2 output of the things that you do, the actions that you take in the real world, you're never going to get to where you want to be. You want to be aiming for like a 10 out of 10 most of the time. Not all the time, because things happen. We may get tired, we may get stressed. There are limits to how much we can go all out. If you think of an athlete, they can't keep on working out all hours of a day continuously, 24/7. They're going to have some peaks. So sometimes you may be a 7 and a 7, or sometimes you may have a 4 and a 10. But our ideal goal and outcome is to not just focus on the information and actually start to practice the application. Now, one of the myths that we have is we need to know more, right? So when I train people to do what I do, even though they've got the necessary skills to be able to make a huge transformation in someone, they don't always go for it until we teach them out of it. But initially they go, well, I don't know enough. I haven't got enough experience to start working with people. Well, no one did in the beginning, right? If you think of a brain surgeon or a surgeon in general or a mechanic, you've got to actually start applying what you know in order to get better at what you know. That's where learnings really happen. You did not learn to walk by just observing that information of people walking around you. You actually began to observe and then mimic. You began to model that information of people walking, and then you started to do it. And guess what? You failed, you fell over, you didn't look that good as a walker when you're walking because you're stumbling everywhere. But after a time of that application, what happened? It became second nature. Now, the other myth of I don't know enough, well, there's plenty of things that you do every single day, but you know nothing about. Like, I don't know when I flick a switch how electricity works. I don't know when I get into my car all the things like carburetors. I've heard the word, but I have no idea about what it does. But I still trust it. I trust and know electricity is going to be there. I know that the car's going to go. I know enough information to start to use what I have to start to apply it. So if you find yourself in the trap of information only, even if it's just listening to my work, then I really ask you to start to take action upon it. Start to get that 10 out of 10 of the actions that you do, because that's going to actually filter through to the information that you have. Because on the job experience, you will start to then get that experience to apply into wisdom. So you're not after information. You need the wisdom, and that is, to me, a combination of information but application. Because that's when you learn from your failures, or so-called failures. Really, in reality, it's feedback. It's feedback that this didn't work, I'm going to do something else. And you keep on refining and refining and refining. And I think in, like, say, computer science, they called it like the TOTE model. So it's a TOTE, which technically means test, operate, test, exit. So you do some testing, then you do the operation, the thing that is doing it, then you test. If everything's all good, you exit. That's the whole thing. If not, you go back to the testing and then the operation of what you're doing, the application ultimately. You've got to think about your goals and dreams like that. You cannot just have wishful thinking. I know we've got things like the law of attraction, we've got things like positive thinking, mindfulness, and I'm not even putting down on those things. But the only way to even make those things work is to actually start doing something. Yes, we are human beings, but yes, we're human doings. We've got to do things to acquire that information, to become wisdom, to make that change. So if you were to ask yourself, based on the amount of time that you have when it comes to the consumption of data, information, in other words, self-development, podcasts, books, trainings, seminars, all of those things, if you just weigh that up, do you equal taking action on it? If you don't, then that's probably going to keep you stuck. And it may be the case that you are self-sabotaging yourself, because maybe you've got all this information, but you don't believe that you're good enough to start to apply it. A bit like in the beginning, my practitioners, they're like, I don't know enough, so what if I make a mistake? What if I can't help that person? Well, you don't know until you do, right? We don't know what we don't know. The only way we begin to know is to take things into the application mode. And that kind of goes into the 4 stages of learning. The first stage is unconscious incompetence. So I don't know what I don't know. I'm just totally unconsciously incompetent. Then I become consciously aware that something's wrong, that I want to make a change. I realize that, hey, I don't like this anxiety. I don't like this lack of doing. I don't like this self-sabotage. So then you become consciously aware that you're incompetent at doing a certain behavior, where it be I'm not achieving my goal or I'm not getting the confidence I want. And then when you get to that level, you get to the third stage, which is conscious competence. And then once you master that, it becomes second nature, which is unconscious competence. The analogy I always say is like when you first learned to drive, for those who have learned to drive. In one period of your time, you had no idea. You were even oblivious to what cars were, maybe when you're a baby. Then you become consciously aware that you're not very good at it because you've never stepped into a car. And then you start to maybe get some lessons and you start to go, well, this is real clunky, but I'm doing it. Like, it's not second nature, but you know the ins and outs, but then you keep on applying that, right? You keep on doing that action, refining yourself, and then it becomes second nature. So if you take that metaphor and an analogy and now apply it to, say, your esteem or a goal or a dream. If, for example, you are in that place of, I just don't know enough, that's not that good. If we just keep going, I don't know enough to be able to do, you will never know enough because, once again, from the application, the doingness will create the wisdom that you need, the experience, the lessons, and the learnings. And if we think of what transformation is, well, the way I work anyway, there's lots of different ways of working, but when I work with the unconscious mind, because if you could let go of your issue, you'd click your fingers and let it go, and that must mean the unconscious mind's running it. Well, the only reason as to why your unconscious mind keeps doing what it's doing is because it doesn't know any better, right? Otherwise, it would do something different. It may be even stuck from that place when you're like 7, 8 years old and that traumatic thing happened, and your unconscious mind made a decision. Well, that means I'm not good enough. That means I'm not worthy. That means I'm not capable or deserving, and so on. So it's trying to ultimately protect you. It's trying to keep you safe by playing small and not doing the work. But when you start to make that conscious first set of steps, where you start to consciously start to implement, you are then going to gather those learnings, that wisdom, which will then make the unconscious mind go, actually, this is a safer way of being. So the lesson here in this message is you probably know enough to get going. You know enough to gain experience from the outside world. So if I were you, I wouldn't just be buying another one of my hypnosis sessions, most probably. So I'm not here to sell you onto like my sessions or my program or my trainings or anything like that. For a lot of us, we probably know enough in information, but it hasn't become a reality because we haven't taken action upon it. So ask yourself this then. If, for example, you feel like you've got information but not enough application of the doingness, the things that you do, what 5 things can you do this week? 5 things that will lead you closer to your goal. Is it picking up the phone and reaching out to someone who you know will absolutely solve the issue? Or is it actually knowing that you know enough things to be able to start doing it yourself and going out there and testing, having that opportunity and that experience to get feedback, right? That's where you learn. Think of every single job, every single experience where you do something automatically on second nature. It could be your present job right now. It could be the walking. It could be the talking. It could be the driving. All of those things. Well, it took time, right? And in that space of time, the things that you did created that wisdom. So remember, you don't need to always know more. You just need to apply more. So consider, what 5 things can I do this week? Or the next 7 days, depending where you are on the week, in the next 7 days, that I can actually go out there and test. go out there and apply what I've got as information. And you may be surprised, number one, that you can actually do it, or number two, that you actually gain that wisdom by that application of the doing this. So that's what I really suggest. Don't over consume information. It's only ever going to make you feel like a failure. Think about it. If you keep on thinking, I need to consume more, you will never feel enough. You will never have that external validation from the things that you acquire, whether it be from information to physical things, to ever make you feel good on the inside. And what does that do? It makes you feel lost, alone, and unable to do it. You just self-sabotage and you play small. You stay in your comfort zone. It doesn't work that way. You're literally feedbacking the loop of that information as to why you can't do it by the nature of not even going out there to do those actions that you really need. So I hope you got value from this. Hopefully it kind of inspires you to get you going and doing more things. Those 5 things, what can you do? That's what I'm after from you today. And of course, if you want to gain a little bit of information, but actually the application, you can go ahead and download the free hypnosis app at freehypnosis.app and just listen, but actually take action as you do so. So sometimes we do need more information to take action upon it. So that if things are working, keep doing it, but don't play small and just think, I'm going to listen to a hypnosis session and do nothing. Go out there and test. Go out there and explore. We actually talked a bit about this, actually. The map is not the territory. Okay, the person's name, I'm trying to think of who actually said that. It will come back to me. If not, it'll come back to me. It's a podcast. But Alfred Korbisky, there we go. So, always hypnotize yourself to remember things by saying it will come back to you, and not that you cannot remember, by the way. So if we think about the map is not the territory, your map of the world, and I think we talked about this recently, is just your present experience. Well, there's so much more to discover than your present lens of thinking. There's just your present reality. There's so much more to discover, and there's so much more to explore, but you only explore the inner nature and reality of you by going out there in reality to do what has to be done. So I hope you got value from this, and I look forward to speaking to you on a future episode. Many thanks and goodbye.